Massachusetts called River Valley Market. And we're coming up on our 5th anniversary. So we're one of the new food co-ops that's opened in the last 5 years. And it would help me a lot. Could you let me know, kind of go around here, who you are, what co-op you're with, whether you're open yet or not, where you are, what stage you are with it? Can we start with you?
Sure. My name's Catherine. I'm with the Ambler Food Co-op in Pennsylvania. We're very young. We're only a year old. We have not opened our doors. We're currently refining our bylaws and taking pledges for membership.
Great. Great. Thank you.
My name's Eric. I'm with Wild Root Market in Racine, Wisconsin.
In Wisconsin?
Yep. We are currently fundraising. We've been active for about a year and a half. So we're coming up on the tipping point where we feel we've got enough membership to start making significant commitments to things. So we're here to see what's next.
Yeah. Great. Can you guys hear?
I'm kind of out there is competing.
As long as you stand up. Fair.
That'll be better. Okay.
I am also with Eric from Wild Root Market in Wisconsin.
Okay. Thank you.
And same here, my name is Margie, and I'm with Eric in Colleen.
My name is Heather Flores. I'm with a group of people. We're interested in the idea of starting a Dearborn Food Co-op. So we've been meeting for 3 months and figuring out that we need subcommittees.
Just getting started. All right.
Dearborn is in Michigan.
Oh, right.
I'm Alex Jones, and I work with a group that's doing technical advising for the Renaissance Community Co-op. And they've been coming together for about 8 months and to start a food co-op in a food desert in Greensboro, North Carolina. And we're trying to be not in the organic natural niche, but a full service grocery store co-op in an area that has been without a grocery store for the last 15 years.
Hi, my name is Sadie Blue. I am the assistant treasurer for the Renaissance Community Co-op in Greensboro, North Carolina, and I'm kind of interested here today because I'm in charge of the membership drive. So I need lots of ideas to get this really going.
Great.
I'm Bill Gessner with CBS Consulting Co-op, and worked with Rochelle years ago on their project, and just wanted to be here today.
My best advice is do whatever Bill tells you. Do what Bill says. He's always right.
I'm Pamela Baldwin. I'm from Lovettsville, Virginia. We organized about 2 years ago. We're a small community on the outer fringes of the Washington metropolitan area. We're actually a rural community. We are now something over 200 members. We've been incorporated for over a year. We're slogging along.
My name is Bill Dory. I'm the Economic Development Director for Greencastle and Putnam County, which is an hour northwest of Bloomington. And we're looking at the co-op model to help us fill some retail gaps and to support our ag community in the county.
I'm Mary Meyer. I'm with Rogers Park Food Co-op. It's an urban community on the north side of Chicago. It's a very diverse community. We're in the very early stages of working to start a food co-op, forming a steering committee.
I'm Red Landers. I'm with Hudson, Wisconsin Co-op. It's very beginning stages of development. My interest is on the producer side.
My name is Megan. I'm also here with Mary from Rogers Park on the north side of Chicago.
I'm Kelly Snyder with Stones Throw Market in Troy, Ohio. We're a food co-op north of Dayton. We've been in existence about 3 years. We have a little mini market and an online sales presence.
Interesting. So you're open. You've been open for 3 years?
About 2. Open for 2. slogging along. I like that expression. That's kind of where we are. We're slogging along.
And my name is John Hornkamp, and I'm also with Stone's Throw Market in Detroit. My name is Brad Alstrom. I'm with Blooming Foods. I work with 3 different regional co-ops providing operational support, including some startups, and previously managed a startup, but now we're south of here in Paywood, Indiana. So opened a little before, I think, River Valley Market.
Hi, I'm Sarah Beth Drybread from Columbus, Indiana with the Columbus Food Co-op, and we are in year 3 and kind of year 4 here, and we have over 700 members. We've done a lot of community outreach, film series, raised initial capital, and we're in negotiations right now for a downtown location.
Hi, I'm Spencer Hicks. I'm with Moon Co-op from Oxford, Ohio. We've been in operation for about 15 months now, and so we're just still, going through the beginning opening stages.
My name is Lori Heber, and I'm a board member of the Terra Foods Cooperative Market in Terre Haute, Indiana. We are still growing. We have about 500 of a 600 member point to begin actively opening our store. We have planned, thanks to CDS, we've revitalized our efforts over the last couple of years and are on track to get that store open next year. So we're very excited.
I'm Dave Adams. I'm from the Columbus Market in Madison. Always came over and drooled at what Brad was doing at Lost River, and we'd like to begin our co-op. We've done a lot of infrastructure, we have community gardens and other things like that. Got people thinking, done a lot of legwork, but we're kind of excited to start with membership and maybe something else.
I'm Deb Delore. I am in Louisville, Kentucky. We have Eastwood Market and Cafe that is in its beginning stages. We've managed our feasibility study and are working towards outreach and ownership recruitment, which is my job. So I'll be taking notes.
All right.
I'm Jacqueline Hanna. I'm with Common Ground Food Cooperative in Illinois. We've actually been in existence since 1974. I'm mostly here because there are 9 to 10 Illinois communities trying to start food co-ops, and we want to help support them. And actually, when I took over Common Ground, it was a tiny little space in the basement of the church, and we now have a very successful store. And the process is kind of, sometimes I feel like I empathize with you, and I agree. Anything Bill says.
No pressure.
My name is Krista Timbers. I'm with River City Food Co-op, and I've been running for 7 years now.
What's that?
Evansville, Indiana.
Okay.
My name's Stephanie. I'm with Eagle Exchange, and I'm providing you all with this information. But on this side, I'm also on the board of the Harvest Food Co-op in Boston, which is one of the members on the market.
One of our neighbors.
Yeah.
One of our neighbors. Great. All right, so it sounds like we're like in the range from like just started a couple of months to open since 1974. So we got a little range. I've been working for River Valley Market for 12 years. So the development stage that I was involved with was 7 years, and we will be 5 years old on April 30th this year. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pretty quickly, hopefully quickly, kind of run through sort of our basic story and then open it up for questions. But at any point, just raise your hand if you have a question. Feel free to interrupt me. Can you hear me okay? Mm-hmm. Great. All right. So this is our store. We did all new construction, and we've got, this is some of our member loan people holding up the banner. We had about 500 people did member loans, so this is just a little sampling of them. So we are a consumer-owned retail co-op. Started with a few people having conversations about how we should have a food co-op. And I think those conversations, the fact that they developed some steam over time, really I think a lot of people can talk about things, but actually doing something takes a lot more effort. And the people that worked on starting our food co-op, were kind of movers and shakers in the local foods movement. They had just started a nonprofit, which has kind of become a model for the local food marketing. CISA, you see buylocalfood.com.
Oh yeah, we have that in Chicago too.
Yeah, they support marketing local foods, and one of their first strategies was to get local food in the supermarket, also to support farmers with farmers market and business development. And they said, well, what we really need is we need a community-owned grocery store that supports local farmers, as well as getting local food in the regular supermarkets. And their whole drive was really that they want to have a store that will really support the local economy and the local food movement. We had Northampton, Massachusetts. It's in western Massachusetts. Town of about 30,000, college town. It's a home of Smith College. There are 5 colleges in the area. There's Mount Holyoke, University of Massachusetts, Amherst College, Hampshire College. It's a rural area along the Connecticut River, very rich agricultural region. And Northampton isn't a big town, but it's sort of a rural areas up in the hills, like we're sort of the magnet to bring people in. In 1976, there was a food co-op in Northampton. And this sort of is a backdrop to us too, that the co-op was a small co-op on kind of a side street next to downtown with no parking. And you know, it had gone for a while, but then a store called Bread and Circus came along, and about 8 miles away in the adjacent town set up a 35,000 square foot store, and within 8 months the food co-op closed. So they had a co-op back in the 70s and they lost it in the early 80s. So for some people, the co-op was like, the idea of a food co-op was a failure, like the community thinking about a food co-op. Some people thought, oh, those are dirty and small and they don't have very much food, and it's like an old 1970s thing and they don't work. Other people, you know, had no experience with it, and they didn't really know anything about co-ops. Yes?
Will you eventually talk a little bit about the failure of the original co-op, and or is there something you want to talk about now? I'm just curious.
I don't know much about it, except that Bread Circus came and it closed really fast.
It's possible they didn't have the resources that most co-ops have today, and
yeah.
Don't know, but that's probably
yeah,
yes.
Exactly.
Well, 45,000 would be a big store back in 1980, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. Everybody went to it. Yeah. And of course now Bread and Circus is Whole Foods store.
Oh.
So Whole Foods, and it's a very successful Whole Foods store. Does over $1 million a week in sales. There's a Trader Joe's right next to it. Northampton also has a natural food store downtown, small, privately owned, about 2,000 square feet, a 10,000 square foot, sort of natural foodish type downtown grocery store. Another store is right in the next block that's also about 10,000 square feet, that's wine and beer and produce. And there's also another probably a 5,000 square foot local grocery store in another downtown area. So there's small local natural foodish, community-owned type stores in this town too. But people wanted to start a food co-op because they really wanted to sell more local food and to support local farmers. So I came along in 2001, and the co-op had about 350 members at that point in time, which seemed really huge to me. We thought we had a location, and so we started the member drive and working on finalizing the lease negotiations. We did a lot of events to raise awareness about what we were doing. Fundraisers served two purposes. The fundraisers brought in a little money, brought in a lot of membership, which was more money, and also like sort of coalesced, kind of built this community of people that wanted to have a food co-op.
So can you tell me for a minute, so exactly what's going on in this particular slide?
Oh yeah.
It says, I don't know, I see bowls and things, I can't.
Yeah, we did this, we did called it the Super Duper Soup Bowl Supper. So this was a long, this was a long project. It started in the I think in the spring. We did it in the fall. We started with doing a bunch of workshops, and people made pottery bowls. And then they donated the bowls, and then we did a soup supper, and then sold tickets for $25. You could come and get a soup dinner, and then you get to take home your pottery bowl that somebody made by hand. So it's a sweet. They do these a lot in like for food shelters and things like that.
How many bowls do you have to do?
We had about 500 for this one.
Okay.
So,
bowls.
and we went through them all. It was so this had like we had all these group meetings and stuff where people came to learn how to make bowls, and some different potters hosted things. So sort of spread this around over a few months, kind of to build up to this, and we got a big spread in the local paper, which was really nice. So a market study is really, really important. Back when this co-op, I'd heard about this co-op a couple of years before I started working, and it was like these crazy people in Northampton wanted to open a 35,000 square foot grocery store, regular grocery store, as a food co-op. And they wanted to be conventional because they didn't want it to be too, they wanted to be opposite of Whole Foods. They didn't want it to be elitist. They didn't want it to be that you had to be a certain kind of person. They wanted it to be open for everyone. And they had a feeling that the best way to sell more local foods was to have a more conventional store that would appeal to a wider segment of the population. So I think one of the things early on, now this was a segment of the board. There was another segment of the board that thought maybe the best thing to do would be to have like a delivery service and work with the CSA, which would be on a different end of the spectrum. Another one wanted to recreate the one that failed and have it be like collectively managed, worker-owned maybe. So there were these different ideas. But the big store, and they had a site that had the potential to have a 35,000 square foot site. So instead of having it be like who could talk the loudest at the meeting, they came to this point that I think has really served our co-op really well. Is like, we don't know this business. We need to like rely on some outside expertise to guide us through this. And so that's when they got in touch with CDS to do a feasibility study, and I think they ended up, before I came along, they had settled on a smaller format, more natural food oriented market as being the most feasible way to go. 35,000 square foot costs a whole lot of money to at the beginning. Margins are really small in conventional foods. It just didn't seem like it was the best way to go.
How big is your board?
9. 9 people. So the market study gave us information about the potential customer membership base, also the size, and just around town what the general location, strengths and weaknesses were, what we should be looking for a place, and then all of the things like what you need for deliveries, ingress and egress. With the grocery store, there's actually a lot of things you need to think about in terms of the logistics to make it work, and they helped point all those things out to us. And they gave us sales projections, which the other thing, I think one of the key things is this gives you information for all of your planning for feasibility, and also when you go to the bank to get money, having a good market study done by people who know this business and have a track record with it is golden. You don't have any credibility as a startup. So what we got out of the market study was a target 12 to 18,000 square foot store, considerably sized down from their 35,000 square foot format that they talked about. A minimum of 100 parking spaces. This is the site on the top. That's a site that we ended up with, and a little elevation of what was going to be built in there. This is this site was a rock quarry. It was a city rock quarry from the 1870s to about 1920. The thing about Northampton is it's a kind of a wealthy, affluent community. There was some commercial real estate that was available, but we could not get it because they thought national chains were going to take it, and they didn't want to work with us. So we ended up in the rock quarry, which nobody wanted.
Michelle, yesterday we were in a group, and the idea of either looking at your community and someone deciding what the best option was one way to go. The other way to go was you had 2 or 3 sites that you had in mind, you had a concept, and you threw that at the marketing group, and they were to kind of help you decide which ones were better. And then the other approach was a combination of both. Mm-hmm. Which direction?
I think we did all 3.
Okay. So you had some idea.
We had them come back a couple of times because we didn't get the first site we wanted.
Okay.
So.
And was this lower cost as well, this particular site? No.
Doesn't look like it.
No.
It had a few development expenses too.
Yeah. Do you mind sharing with us the cost of the whole feasibility study before you actually broke ground?
The feasibility study, the market study?
Market study, yeah.
This was a while back. I think the first one was $8,000, and then the updates were considerably less that we had done to it. And we had them come in, I think, physically 3 times, if I remember right. So it might have been $12,000 total.
Sure.
I can't quite remember.
Let's get the slide.
So first our goal was to get 1,000 members, and then that wasn't enough money, so our next goal was to get 2,000 members. At $150 each, that gave us $300,000.
At what point did you join the group, and from what background did you come? Or what did you bring to it?
I've been a co-op grocer since 1984, and I came in 2001.
At what phase in the prior to opening? What period of time was elapsed?
They had preferred site selected and 350 members, and hoped to finalize the lease and open in 9 months. That didn't happen. So 2,000 members, we got $300,000. 250 of those members made loans, 4,500 each at $1.1 million. So that was the member thing. This is cool. We did the front porch on the co-op. You know, there's like just that plain metal building, but we did the front porch was locally, sustainably grown, locally milled timber frame porch, and the timber framer did this thing, so we had the members come and like actually peg the thing together and do the like raising thing. And this was like, it got on the front page of the paper, nice big. This is a real showy thing, and people had fun. I remember this little 4-year-old boy was like doing some of the pounding, and he like stood up afterwards and said, you know, when I'm a teenager and I'm working here as a bagger. I mean, remember I did.
Those are some aspirations.
Yeah.
One of my aspirations.
Totally.
What was the time frame for the fundraising that you all did, like for the member loans and the memberships, like growing that?
Okay, so the member drive had started. We incorporated in 1999. And had 350 members by 2001. Our goal was to get 1,000 members by the end of 2001. I started in July. We met that goal, had 1,000 members by the end of December. That was our 1,000 members by December, kind of had a ring to it. By January we had 1,200. And then the member drive kind of kept going, and it as when we lost a site, it sort of flattened out. When we gained a site, kind of came up. When we lost a site, flattened out. When we got closer to opening, it like spiked up again. So 1999 to 2008. Really. Part of my job is to make you feel like you are going so fast.
What about member loans? How was that struck? You know, how did you?
We did a drive in 2001, and I think we just abandoned it because it kind of it wasn't. We did that and the member drive at the same time, even though Bill Gessner said don't do these at the same time. You won't be able to make it work. But I just thought we have to get them both done because we have to be open in 9 months, and so I didn't listen to Bill. So I think we may have gotten $250,000 in that first drive, and then we stopped it. And then when we went back, it took us about 5 months, I think, to get that up to 1.1 million, and that was the deal that we could get our financing once we had $1 million in member loans.
Okay. The bank told you that?
Yeah.
Sorry, real quick. Did you have any problems with your first member loan campaign in paying, because I don't know how you had it structured for when you were going to start paying those back to members, so were there issues where, because it took so long, then you had this money that you had to pay back, but you weren't open yet?
We had it structured so that there weren't any payments until after the store had been open for a year.
Okay.
Is that still a good idea?
No. I mean, there shouldn't be any payments in the first 3 or 4 years. You know, of what you're open.
We were only, and that was interest only.
Okay.
And that was interest only at that. No interest payments until after the store had been open for years, what we did. And then the principal was after the store had been open for 7 years. Yeah. Do what Bill says. When I came and one of the first membership meetings, members came up to me and we really want to have a green building. We've got to do this right. And I was just thinking like, it's going to cost so much to like do a really green building. But you know, there were a couple of members that were like, I know it costs more, but there's grant funding. We'll help. We'll like form a committee and we'll like help do this. we ended up getting a $422,000 green building grant, and that funded, it was sort of like the crown jewel in the project. It funded a 34 kilowatt solar electricity on the roof, and then all these other green features like at the whole co-op, which was really, is another nice thing to be able to talk about that the co-op was doing. So we ended up with this 17,000 square foot building and 94 parking spaces. 100 was like the minimum we were looking for. I think when you're doing the market study, you're probably not gonna, you might get lucky and you might find everything that you want, but you're probably not gonna find everything that you want. And you know, it would have been better if we would have had 120 parking spaces. It would have been better if this wasn't on the far edge of the town, probably, of the business district.
How far is it from the business district again?
Oh boy, it's about,
City center, I guess.
it's about it's like a 10-minute drive to downtown.
Okay.
And it's on the, like the main, so you, like you go past
Like
like the
5
big
miles.
supermarket, the drugstores, and then all of the car dealerships and the Walmart, and then there's like a couple of trees for a little way, and then there's us.
In deciding to go back to the natural food market, how did you deal with the question of why should people shop with us instead of Whole Foods down the road?
Yeah, it's because it's a co-op, that it's community owned, that you own it. There's a lot, people love to hate Whole Foods too. So there's a nice contingency of people that love to hate Whole Paycheck, and they were like our first people on board.
But obviously then there was it already present in the community, this co-op value and appreciation, which is not true in a lot of places. A lot of places we have a hard time explaining what it is.
Yeah, we had a hard time explaining what it is to except for the hardcore people too. But the other thing is Whole Foods was 8 miles away, and it's actually over the bridge in another town. It's like really congested traffic. You know, an awful lot of people that live in Northampton work in Amherst or Hadley, which is where it's located. So they like drive that all the time. But still, it's like the psychological idea of like, oh, the bridge. So we had that like, we want like a so the people that didn't hate Whole Foods wanted something like Whole Foods in their town, not over the bridge. So we played it every way that they wanted.
Here's a question for you. What do you think the influence of having so many colleges nearby played into the success of
So we had a very sophisticated market. People had really smart about health and natural foods, and a lot of the values that co-ops are about, even if they didn't really know about co-ops. High education level, high income level, lots of big thinking. It was all good, all very good.
Yeah, I was gonna say the way your market's governed, when you started out, was it, the board primarily driving things, or were you able to get like community involvement? And it sounds like with the solar roof, there was a group that just sprung up and just did that.
Yeah.
As opposed to the board kind of having to encourage or encourage people into.
Yeah, good point. The board definitely was great at driving the business aspect of it, but people just came, like whatever they had energy for, like whatever they wanted, they also seemed to have this feeling of like, you don't just tell them what to do, you like get people together and like create a group and do it, and then like people just flocked to that. So we had an outreach committee that was that met every single month, and people always came, and then they planned all these events, and like when people came up with an idea and there was energy that built up around that, we did that. So really, it was when people had good ideas, it sort of coalesced into these groups, and I sort of coordinated those. That sort of I did.
And that was your mechanism for getting the community input as to how it developed and what.
Yeah, and we had one committee that was concerned about what kinds of foods to have in the store, and so they did. Like they would have, when we did events, they'd have a little table with a box and be like, what are the things that you want to have at the co-op? And the thing that came out of that is people still didn't want a strict natural food store. They wanted a lot of natural organic foods, but not strictly.
So the outreach committee, that was, you said met every month. So is that, did they have a program people knew to come there if they wanted to learn something or add
Yep,
something?
there's a little ad in the paper,
Oh,
a little classified ad that said that it meets in the basement of the Unitarian Church at this time. Everyone's welcome
So
to
that
come.
was separate from the board and the
Yes.
rest. Yeah, that's an important communication tool.
And Ms. Rochelle, I want to ask a question then, because our board is small, of course, and sometimes it seems, even I get exhausted, meeting after meeting after meeting, and then on top of that, let's say you're in charge of the membership drive, or you're in charge of the outreach, or you're in charge of the fundraising. On top of that, can you just tell me a little bit about maybe how you guys maybe delegated out, or did you? Because I'm just thinking about me and possibly everybody else too.
Yeah.
How do you find time for, because it becomes very demanding, and you want to kind of delegate someone to help on this effort who you know you can trust. And the other thing is, you talk about college, so how did you incorporate maybe the young people into this and make them feel a part of this? What did you get them to do, or how did you include them?
Great question. We didn't really work with the colleges much.
Wow. Okay.
It was the core was a little older people. 30s, lots of people in their 30s.
Okay.
And I think that the Smith College they are like really super smart, and they study really hard, and they're like always studying. It's a small college, so they're not as like involved in the community. But a lot of the staff, a lot of college staff, like we had a lot of college professors, people like that were involved.
Okay.
So we did, like, we had committee chairs that was established somewhat before I came, and then we created a couple other committees, and so you just had a few people that had a lot of energy for certain things, and I could work with them. But I was also coming in full time in 2001 as the general manager, so they had me full time.
Okay, they had a good one.
I think also with college students, and I'm not with Blooming Foods or know a lot about Blooming Foods, but I had to do a little bit of research for my own co-op, and this is a huge university town, but there are not many students that are members of the co-op. I mean, a membership fee for a college student is quite a lot of money. And I know you want to go on, but I was surprised at the $150 membership fee, because the co-op I'm with is also East Coast, near Philadelphia, and our co-ops have a much higher membership fee, and I don't know if that would get us off track or not, but did you guys have any regrets about the $150?
It was decided before I started. I think Bill suggested 200.
That's Bill.
and I think that the board just wanted to go a little lower. I think that's about as much. I think that was kind of. But then the member loan campaign made up the balance.
Yeah.
So they wanted to have it as low as possible, but they also felt that the member loan would fill that gap. We opened in 2008. Does anybody remember what happened in 2008? So after all these years of working to get the co-op going, we got the building built. It took about a year to build the building. We got open, and like all this news about the economy going down, and I could hardly even think about it. This is like I couldn't do anything about the economy, and so I just it's like we got it. We got to get our sales up. We got to keep working on things. It was a really difficult period, but the gratefulness of the local vendors at that time, they were under huge pressure. There's a local dairy co-op, 8 family farmers, Our Family Farms Milk. That was the brand milk that was going to be like our main milk brand that we went in with. They said they would have lost their farms. Sorry. But they didn't, because the co-op, they said because the co-op opened and featured it and it made all the difference. So there were a lot of little micro businesses that were able to come through that time period because we opened when we did. So in a lot of ways, maybe it was the best timing of all. We really got a lot of loyalty. And also people seemed like it seemed like there was this whole shift down. So people who were shopping at Whole Foods, like, downgraded to the co-op. And it was like, and people, and then the other thing happened is that people that maybe were going to Stop and Shop were thinking about, it's like, look what's happening to our country. I'm going to support the local co-op. So we took it from both ways on that, and I think was totally counter. Maybe we would have done a lot better if the economy would have been better at that time, but we did well, and we met our projections anyway.
So how does pricing play in that? Are you in terms of Whole Foods or any other grocery? Because it seems like, as you have done, your positioning could be an asset or a liability, and price being one of the issues or factors.
Yeah. Pricing is hard. It's hard. And at the time that we opened, inflation was going way up, especially on commodities. And we could hardly keep up. They were adding, the prices were like increasing on every delivery, and they were adding fuel surcharges, increases on, so the prices, so at the time we're getting all of our initial inventory, the prices are going like this. And so, so our prices look terrible. Probably faster than the local stores. And then I think the inflation settled down. We worked on tweaking things and kind of pulled things back, but it wasn't smooth.
I was going to say, our co-op board visited Good Foods Co-op in Lexington, Kentucky, not too long ago, and they talked a lot about pricing, and I believe they also have a Trader Joe's that's kind of nearby, and they said, we make sure that kind of staple items are better prices than Trader Joe's, so that we can, like organic milk. They're like, we don't make a penny on our milk hardly, but it gets people in the store because we're offering a little bit lower price than Trader Joe's is, and then when they're in the store, obviously they're going to buy more things.
Right.
So.
Yeah. What we ultimately found is that we've done far better with converting Whole Food shoppers to be our members and regular customers than we have with Stop and Shop customers still. So, I mean, we keep chipping away at them, but
why do you think that is?
I think that if you're not used to buying natural foods and having those kinds of price points, an awful lot of what we have looks expensive, which colors your view of everything.
Can you tell me what your margin is?
37.
So
So,
Yes.
just real quickly, how did your competition react? You know, anything noticeable in their
Oh,
in
yeah.
their strategies when
Oh,
you
yeah.
opened up?
The second day we were open, Whole Foods Regional Headquarters sent in 35 people with calculators, and they were quizzing and
In your store?
yeah, in our store,
Wow.
and they were like quizzing and intimidating our staff into like telling them all kinds of things, and the Stop and Shop people were in, and like, and there's another store, Big Y, it's just down the road from us. They were everybody was in, and lots of, well, the Stop and Shop has more natural foods than any other store in their chain. And they had already told us that if we opened, they considered retail a war, and they would use every weapon in their arsenal to crush us.
Now, did you send in like a whole league of 8-year-old soccer players into their store? That's what I would have.
It kind of calmed down after a while. They still come in regularly. But
You know what they are, right?
yeah,
So-
yeah. It was great. The produce manager from the grocery store closest to us, I developed a really good relationship with him. Like on that first day, he was all like this, about the co-op, because they had just redone their store, reopened it 8 months before us, and they had been kind of struggling, so they were really seeing us as a big threat. And I just said, I said, you are probably really glad that we opened, aren't you? He was kind of taken aback. He says, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, because you know what happens to the closest conventional grocery store to a food co-op that opens is their sales go up. Because we're so small, we don't have everything everybody wants. And so what the next closest store is gets all the spillover extra traffic. So you're probably just thrilled that you're going to be getting all these new customers because we open. And he's like, well, I never thought about it that way. And then he was back the next week, and he says, there's something to that. I'm getting all these people in the store I've never seen before. And so we have, so we have this like friendly thing, and they really do see us as having, being a positive impact with some good synergy for their business too. So Stop and Shop doesn't feel that way. Stop and Shop is still war. Whole Foods, war. But they can fight all they want. We just were doing our thing. So in a lot of ways, we just had to ignore a lot of what they do. We kind of watch what they're doing on pricing. But we can't match everything. So we just try to do the best that we can using our values.
For those of us that don't know Stop and Shop, could you describe what kind of store it is?
Basic, big, conventional supermarket. I think they're actually owned. They're owned by Ahold, which is a Dutch company. Just really big. Opposite of local. So we had always planned, we didn't quite raise as much money as we had wanted to before we opened. And the board was kind of burned out and thought, well, after we open, it'll be easier to raise money. Well, the board found they weren't much more energized after the store opened than they were before. But the other thing that happened in one of our contingency plans was that if we didn't do as well as we thought, that we would have to go for a little bit bigger loan. So we planned going in to raise another $100,000 in member loans after we opened, and end up going for $300,000 because we planned to lose some god-awful amount, $1.2 million our first year. We lost $1.4 million, plus we were short $100,000 on funding at the beginning. So we did another member loan campaign after we opened. Got another 100 people involved. That's our board president and vice president.
If you lost $1.4 million in your first year, how did you service your various loans as you went along?
part of, because we planned to lose 1.2 million, we came into it with some cash plan to get us through that period. We didn't miss a loan payment. We never missed a payroll. We never missed a lease payment. We leased the land, but we stretched out a lot of vendors. Stretched them out a lot.
You went like from like net 30 to net 45, net like payment like 30 days to 45 or 60 to 90.
60 to 90. And then was a big thing to get everything down to 60.
Kind of selectively sort of spread it around.
Yeah, I think our
stretch
AP.
one out, then stretch another.
Well, I think our accounts payable got up to over $1 million. So our vendors carried us through. And what we did is we tried to we had to pay UNFI every 21 days no matter what, because they just took it out of our account. We didn't pay it. So
What is that?
UNFI is our major natural foods supplier. Probably biggest single supplier. So we paid our small farmers, tried to get them on 7 or 14-day terms, and then stretched everybody else as far as we could.
With $1 million in accounts payable, what was your inventory value at the time? Do you recall? Roughly.
I'm going to say 400,000.
Yeah, so you didn't own any. You didn't own any of your inventory.
None.
Plus, yeah.
Yeah. Those were not good times. I mean, one of the key things. I'll talk about that in a minute, I think. I'm going to come back to that. If I forget, remind me. So where we are, we've been open for 5 years now. When we originally planned the store, 17,000 square feet, what we found is we grew so fast we had to do additional refrigerated storage space for the meat and deli department, which added another 434 square feet in the second year. So we've got 11,000 square feet of retail. Our offices are in a mezzanine. That's about 2,000 square feet. So I think this is conservative.
Is the 2,000 on top of the 17?
No, it's included. It's included. So total everything is 17,434. We're going to end our 5th year here, 16.7 million, except we're ahead of budget right now and have a few months to go. I'm thinking we might actually hit 17 this year. And we had planned in our 5th year to hit 10.8. So the sales has carried the day. Yeah. We're still growing over 10% over the previous year. We opened with 2,000 members. We now have 5,600.
If you plotted your sales growth from opening to your 5-year period, what would it look like?
I have a graph of that. So I will show you. Okay. Last year was our first profitable year. Profitable. Part of doing a new store, all new equipment, is you have a really high depreciation expense. Got some financial geeky people in here. That's not a cash expense. So we looked at it 2 ways. The first way was we added depreciation back in and said, well, we really lost 1.4 million, but if you take the 600,000 that was depreciation and add it back in, it doesn't look as bad.
Cash flow basis.
On a cash flow, yeah. So we did that. So I think we broke even on a cash flow basis at a year and a half. But we made our first net profit, like real profit, was this last year, was 1.77%. So we were able to do patronage rebates.
I was just saying, were you able to then, was that the first year for rebates?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We're cutting the checks this month. Yeah. We started with a mortgage of 6.5 million, 7.3 million. we're getting it worked down to about 6.5 at this point.
What's the term of the mortgage?
It balloons in March of 2014. So all that has to be refinanced. Member loans, $1.4 million in member loans, because we had the 1.1 and we got the other 300. And our member equity is up to that.
You say you lease the ground, but the mortgage is on the building.
Yes.
Could you go back one? Yeah, just one. Thank you. No, I just wanted to get the member equity.
Are you gonna, did you all get grants, or is that coming forward?
We got a little, besides the green building grant, we got a couple other minor, small grants, but not much.
Who did you have your mortgage with? Was it
We got this I could probably talk for 2 hours about our financing structure. It's a very complex, convoluted, new markets tax credit thing. But I'd be happy to talk about it, just not a lot now. Yeah, another session. Totally another session. So last year, this year that we finished in June 30th, just kind of looking at, this is the first year we made a profit. Our contributions back to the community were about $58,000. That was just, that's the people coming in and having whatever their nonprofit event is, and they want some food for it, they want you to sponsor an event, do some advertising, things like that. Tons and tons of that. And we've been doing this really, when we lost 1.4 million, I think this number was probably around 30,000 something still. We've always done that. It's been our kind of major advertising, one of our major advertising pushes is to support the things that our members are doing, and then you get that exposure in their circles, and it just kind of helps widen all of those circles. I think it's really good. And it's really fun. Since the whole reason that we started the food co-op was to do the support local farmers, we've been tracking that number. First year we spent $1 million locally. This last year it was $2.7 million locally.
I have a question about vendors. We're very, very small, and there are still times that my vendors can't supply my needs.
Right.
How do you find those people who have enough lettuce or Brussels sprouts or whatever? I mean, do you have that problem also? I mean, I would think that large of.
But part of the reason that it's grown from 1 million to 2.7 is they've geared up. They've geared up. And it was interesting, I was on a panel with some other co-op people, and one of them is the Farmers Co-op, the Farmers Supply Co-op, and they were talking about how their sales went up after the co-op opened because the farmers are coming in, they're expanding how much they're growing to supply the co-op, and this is in 2009, 2010, which is really, really awesome. We have over 100 people working for the co-op now, and 86.7% of them are full-time with benefits. 70% are at or above the livable wage rate. So I think we're at 105, 107 employees right now. So that's been a big, in our town to have 100 employees puts you in that league of being a big employer in town. But I think, the bigger things are like the universities and the colleges and a couple of factories.
I see you have a nice sign there that some of the principals.
That's right up at the cash registers. Yeah. He's wearing this is Thanksgiving, he's wearing a turkey hat. I'd been wearing it and he wanted to wear it. So spread the wealth. Here's what the sales growth would look like if you put it on a chart. So this is our this is month by month, first year, second year, third, fourth. The blue line, light blue line at the top is the budget for this year, and the yellow line is actual.
February.
And February is gonna,
Nothing fresh.
February, just ended at 1.4, so it's above, it's way above the blue line.
What's the cause of the dip in February each year?
28 days.
Oh, wow, of course.
But look, it didn't dip as much last year because it was leap year. We got another day. That's what that dark brown one is. But
And what about in June? What's the
June, summertime. Part of being a college town is a lot of people travel an awful lot in the summer, maybe more than other kinds of communities. The other thing is, lifestyle-wise, lots of gardens, farmers markets, lots of community-supported agriculture. People are like going to the farms and getting their box of produce every week if they're not getting out of their backyard, or the farmers markets. And so sort of counterintuitively, during our growing season is our lowest sales point. And then when school starts in the fall, it starts to come back up again. Then October kind of settles in, and then we've got the holidays, holiday peak here. And then May is our best month in our business year. So calendar year would be December for the Christmas holidays, but May is actually always better. Nicer weather, more people out.
A lot of parties and.
Yeah. Graduations, that's the other part of college town. Lots of parties. Grilling, all kinds of stuff. The other thing are membership growth. Look how like just incrementally steady.
Low and steady.
So the customer count is growing. Our sales growth is coming from more customers, higher basket sizes.
Well, 50 members a month about?
Yeah, yeah. Except when we do our member drives, and we usually get 100.
Would you repeat what you just said?
I said 50 members per month approximately.
We last year was about 500 for the year. We did a member survey. Our members are pretty happy with us, even though they said our prices are horrible.
How do you gauge that? How do you, is that something like you said earlier, sometimes you just kind of have to ignore your competition, just run your store, but that would seem to be the sort of thing, if you heard it, your knee-jerk reaction would be to just freak out and start slashing prices. How do you kind of manage that?
What we did is we spent a few months trying to figure out exactly why they were saying that, and decided that we were not promoting our good prices well enough. So we've retooled our signage and launched a new.
So it's more of a perception, really, than
We think it's more of a perception, yeah.
Do you consciously offer consumers an alternative between natural and conventional on basic staples? And
When there's a big price difference, so like our produce department's probably 80% organic or local and 20% conventional, and it's when there's a price difference, a big price difference, that we offer the range. Same in the meat department. And just like kind of throughout the store, if there's a big price difference, we offer choices. And that's what our customers want. They want a diversity of choices. And they've told us that. And the surveys also supported that every time we've done it. This was our every June we do a strawberry ice cream social with local ice cream and local strawberries, and do a little co-op awards and celebration kind of thing in our parking lot.
Do you offer any kind of incentives to the members only? Like
We do.
Or like a discount or shopping days or anything like that?
Yeah, when we did our pro forma, there was no way we could afford a member discount as part of our program. It was like really clear. So what we've done is member specials, but what we really found at the beginning is the member specials aren't as important because you really want to build your overall sales. So like specials for everybody is like a lot more important early on. And you know, now, I mean, we're still like talking like, well, maybe now it's time to focus a little bit more on member specials. We've always had them, but it hasn't been a big program.
I was going to say, what percentage of customers are member owners versus not?
It's been running pretty steady at 60%.
Are member owners?
Yep. Yeah. From the beginning, and as we've grown, it just kind of followed.
Okay. So strangely, I was curious what is your average sales to member owners? Like do you have an annual, or I don't know how you gauge that exactly?
Yeah. Our average basket is running between $40 and $45. Yeah. Per week. That's per shopping trip is what that is. Some of our members shop many times in a week.
Do you use volunteers at all?
I still have an outreach committee that are volunteers. We don't have any volunteers doing any store work.
Oh, no.
And they're strictly volunteers. They every once in a while I give them a thank you gift card, but they don't get like a discount in exchange for it or anything.
Are your workers, are they required to be a member, or you just hire from the pool around?
We just hire from the pool around. We encourage about 60% of our staff are members as well.
Did your membership recruitment process or I guess initiatives change considerably early on versus your ongoing?
Well, at first we just I actually had extra board when we first opened our doors. I think I had 3 board members that never intended to, but couldn't get away from the customer service desk for about the first 2 weeks because people were lined up wanting to join. We didn't do anything except open the door. And then after that, we settled into twice a year member drive. Month of October because it's co-op month, and month of March because it's spring and we kind of get new people in at that point in time. It's past taxes and all that stuff. So our mission, more broadly than just supporting local farmers, is to create a just marketplace that nourishes the community. So we're involved in a lot of community events and throw a lot of parties. Lots of our promotion is focused on local products, local apples, local honey. There's our Family Farms truck right there. And of course, our co-op friends at Equal Exchange. Equal Exchange. Used to Equal Exchange. So co-op. So you asked so many questions. Didn't really get to do the surprise that it wasn't all a piece of cake. But one of the things, talk about what success looks like. My marker's open here. Like I think lots of people think success looks like here's where you start and there's your goal and that's how you get there. And for us, I think it was like something like that. Does that seem anybody experience any of the squiggles? If not yet,
nothing like what you have.
if not yet, they're coming. So we hit a lot of rocky points, and it was funny. So it kind of made it a joke at the end of our whole site search. It was like, between a rock and a hard place. And these rocks, this place had been there from the beginning, but it just looked like such a daunting site to do because it needed all new development. It was all new construction. You know, it wasn't even refurbishing an old building. It was like, you know, you had to get utilities up through the whole thing. So, anyway, at the end of the day, that was the best spot for us.
Is it, I'm asking Bill, isn't a green site, doesn't a green site would be easier to work with than a brown site anyways? Okay.
In most cases, yeah.
Yeah. We had about the
new versus refurbishing something that already exists.
all of the, because like, and construction, anybody experienced with construction? You know, like you don't know if there's ledge underneath in most places. And that's like one of the things when you're pricing out construction, like, well, you know, if we run into ledge, it's gonna cost you more. Well, this site had about an average of 12 inches of topsoil on top of bedrock. So we knew there was ledge, and the city connected us up with the people that own this site, and really encouraged us. They had to rezone it. They wanted to rezone it, and they helped us to get our financing that I could talk about for an hour. But part of the deal with the financing that was set up is that a significant portion of the debt would be forgiven at 7 years. And so we undertook this whole project with an understanding that $1.7 million of our debt is forgiven in March of 2014. If we make it that long. It's a program. It's a federal New Markets tax credit program that low income census tracts can qualify for.
It's extremely complicated, but it can be pretty beneficial for these kind of projects.
Yeah. So I just want to, like, for those of you that are getting started, like, things can go wrong sometimes more than once. Leases can fall through. Market study can show that something you were really excited about isn't going to be good. When our first lease fell through, it was because the developer that the co-op board had talked to and kind of outlined terms never closed the deal with the property owner. And it was a really great site. I really wanted to store there. Bill kept saying, keep looking for another place. I was like, this is such a great place. It's like, yeah, but it's not available yet. You know? You know, when that site fell through, there was a site across the river, over on the Whole Foods side of the river, 20,000 square foot grocery store with 2 loading docks. Didn't have any equipment in it left, but we could just like roll it in and plug it in, and like I love that site. Like that's easy. And when we did the market study update, no, said don't do it. It's not a good spot. So my members also didn't like the idea of putting a co-op across the bridge on the same side as Whole Foods. Construction requirements could be cost prohibitive, so they can like turn you away from places. Environmental issues. I think it was 1.2 or $3 million extra to deal with the site logistics that we had to do with our project. Our total project costs through the whole thing was $9.7 million. Let's see. Oh, and then that first place I wanted, another developer got it, got farther along. The city called me and said, "Oh, this place is open again." And that fell through again and again.
Twice.
Actually, 5 times. Well, I didn't put them all in, I don't think. Every new developer got closer to sealing the deal, but never did. And yes, people got impatient and discouraged. We had late, like just when we were close to, when we were close to the final closing on the financing, a reporter called us and was like, we're going to run a story about how you guys aren't any closer to opening than you were 5 years ago. And we want to know where you're at and what's going on. And we were like right on the edge of closing on financing, days away. And we said, you know, we're a co-op. We're really close. We're having a member meeting on this date, and we're going to talk to our members about where we're at that point in time. You're welcome to come right after the meeting, and we'll give you a press release so you'll have it for the next morning. But we have to tell our members first. The day of our meeting, the morning, we met at night. Full page article with a picture of our site with the sign that said future home of, you know, just totally undeveloped, snow, deer tracks through the snow, and it says co-op no closer to opening than 5 years ago. And this whole tirade about how you know, it was never going to happen, we were never going to get a co-op, and that was the night that we were announcing to our membership that we opened. So
did you run an ad the next day saying, sorry.
Do you think that was preemptive
By
strike
Whole Foods?
on, preemptive strike?
Yeah.
I think members were frustrated, and you know, we were close, but it had been a long time. What can I say?
Did that help your meeting attendance that night?
Oh yeah.
That's what you wanted, wasn't it?
I guess we couldn't have done it better. I don't know. Anyway, all kinds of things can go wrong in this whole thing, and then once you open, it's like my board kept saying, "Oh, once we open, everything's going to be so much easier." And it's like, no, then you got like customers and employees and members and like, yeah. One of the things that we did is we really tried as hard for myself and also for the board members to try to understand what going into a project, losing money was not going to feel as good as when you make money. And, you know, to be able to deal with that, because if you panic and then it just drives people away. So we had our contingency plans, like, you know, more member loans, how we're going to do things. And fortunately, and then the economy did its thing, but I think one of the key things is that the board never panicked. And the members never panicked. And the staff, I did always open book management with the staff, because, you know, that's who the customers are going to talk to, the members are going to talk to. So you want the staff to feel comfortable, and you don't want the staff, because if the staff panics, the membership's going to panic, and then the board's going to panic, and then you're going to panic. And so,
how did you deal with transparency through all of this? Because what I'm finding with our co-op is we've gone through 2 sites that haven't worked out, technically 4, but I don't count 2 of them. So,
I only count 2.
Yeah. So we're at the point where, and actually just yesterday, our local paper emailed and, you know, just, you know, any updates, yada yada, and they're actually started suggesting sites, like, have you looked at this, you know, where the old marsh is closing or things like that. Yeah, so, you know, what I'm finding is it's really hard to communicate with the members. Like, we don't want to get their hopes up on this new site that we're negotiating on, but at the same time, I hate being so vague about everything. I'm just like, well, we're working on a site downtown, because we're a co-op and we need to be transparent. And so really the only way that our members know what exactly is going on with this site is when I communicate with them verbally, when I run into them, you know, on the street, or they email, or they call or something. So how did you deal with the transparency? I mean, were you just completely open about this isn't working, that's not working, or okay?
No. We had agreement that we wouldn't talk about specific sites until they were secured. And you know, with an agreement from the landlord. So we and they sort of jumped ahead on that first one, They liked the terms that a developer that didn't own the property gave them. And they liked the spot, so that spot was publicized widely. But then after that, it was like, so there was only one other one, and we had, I think we worked 9 months on developing that site. And that's where Stop and Shop came in. After 9 months of doing all of the lease negotiations up to the final thing, and also the design phase and the cost projections, had a meeting with the landlord, and there was a deed restriction from 1960 by Stop and Shop on a corner of the property, which threw the whole project, which we got when we did the title search at the end of the lease thing. So do that first, even though it costs $1,000, do it first.
I think it's a really good question in terms of transparency, and one of the ways I think you can work with that a little bit is I think you can be transparent about your process, while still maintaining confidentiality on important things like real estate things need to be confidential until you secure the site. But there's a lot you can say about your process,
Yeah.
and you can be transparent about that.
Yeah, I totally agree, and we did that. We also talked about, the way supermarkets do their store development. You never know, like it seems like they just like pop up and they're doing a store, right? But the way that it actually works is they've got a development branch that's working on, maybe a dozen sites all over for years and years and years. And when it gets finalized, then it hits the paper and everybody knows about it. So kind of a way to tell the story is like the member owners now have to think that you just have the one store, and so you've got your development group that's working on it, and until it gets secured, you can't bring that out. But you get feedback about what kind of store. Welcome all of the opinions about where it should be.
The challenge of fundraising, and
Yeah.
There's a lot.
Yeah, just to it's whole communities don't usually do development projects together.
The parties that you say you promote or support or convene, where do you do them?
Mostly, now that we have a store in our parking lot, or inside the store, in bad weather. We've done a few off-site at like the town park, places like that. Before we opened, it was a lot of church basements and that sort of thing. At the point of the Stop and Shop deed restriction, we thought we were coming down to the end of the money that we had. This was the second site, and we really thought, this is it. We're gonna get this finished. We're gonna do our final fundraising. I'm gonna make this one go. And when that site fell through, I thought that was the end. And we convened a emergency meeting of the members, and told them what happened. It's like, we've got 1,000 members and no place to go, and not any money. And they wanted to keep going. So, because the members wanted to keep going, the board wanted to keep going, and I wanted to keep going. And we had, took a couple years to after that even to get everything settled, but we got $150,000 in support from some other co-ops that sort of bridged that gap from all the money that we had spent, because we spent a lot on architecture and all that. Yes?
I'll just put a plug in for what I do. I run an economic development office countywide, and if you are going through a site selection process, most of the clients we deal with are industrial in nature, but a lot of us that work in smaller communities know the commercial market reasonably well. And we can often, people in positions like mine, can often give you a little guidance as to who the more reputable developers are, or typically we know our way around the courthouses and can do some of this site selection assistance for you in terms of either identifying property owners that you can take to your consultants to work with and things like that. We can also help identify contractors that may be willing to work with you as well. So most communities have somebody, whether it's housed in the local unit of government or we're set up as a not-for-profit, which is fairly common here in Indiana. And there are these local resources that you can talk to. We're all used to maintaining confidences and things of that nature. In urban areas, you may run across neighborhood development corporations that sort of form a similar role. And when I even work with small retailers, we provide demographic information and a whole host of other services as well. But there are these people out there that can, help you identify things. And sometimes, if we know our communities well enough, we can identify site issues. You guys have ledge in Massachusetts. We have limestone here in Indiana. And, I know the sites in my community that are going to be more expensive to develop because there are issues relative to them.
Yeah, it's really important to talk to professionals that know the area. We've just got a couple of minutes left. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to hit my next couple of slides, and then I'm happy to hang out here and answer a couple of other questions as long as you want after that. That'd be all right? Okay. Cool. All right. So starting new co-ops, you need a good, healthy dose of activism. Get out there and get organized, get members. You need to focus on the financial feasibility and that making your co-op so that it makes your community more prosperous. And just a lot of care and love in the whole project. My board president and store manager there. And that was the back of somebody's t-shirt at one of our meetings. Margaret Mead. Anyway, I think it's really exciting, all of your projects that you have going, and I'm really excited about them. And I know that you'll get them done way faster than we did.
Would it be possible to get a copy of your PowerPoint?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I'll figure out how to do that,
we can give you email addresses.
Yeah. Yeah. It's too big to email, so I'll have to figure something out.
I have a pretty small specific question. Who owns the land that you built on?
It's a woman and her father, and we've got a 20-year lease with the option to buy at the end of 20 years, or the option to renew it for 20 years. And the terms basically all laid out for that. So in a way it was great. We had to spend all the money on developing that site, but we worked it out in the negotiations so that the improvements that we made to the site won't be charged to us on the price of the land when we buy it.
From your perspective during the tough times, what were the strengths of your board?
It was interesting. It was never like, oh, this is going to take years. It was always like the next thing was just about ready to break through. So really the whole time, you're sort of on the edge of your seat waiting for the thing that you were working on to work. And then and trying to keep some other options open too. And then when it didn't work, then on to the next most preferred thing until it fell. So I think that we had really good teamwork on the board at that point. I think the other thing is we had a lot of members' money. We spent a lot of members' money, and we really wanted to make it work because we didn't want to have spent all that money and have it not work. So that was really, you couldn't walk away from it. You just couldn't walk away from it.
What was the relationship of the board and the initial thought of having a co-op? I mean, were they people that wanted this, to have this vision or idea, or were they selected kind of ad hoc because of their community involvement?
Boy, they were one person had some good business experience with in local agriculture, and so he brought a lot to that. I think he was drawn to the board for that. One person was a local ice cream maker that had a couple of ice cream shops in the area. Another person had a degree in sustainable agriculture. Another person had been a member of a couple of food co-ops. So it was people that really just had the vision, that not it wasn't like we had a lawyer and a marketing person and a finance person or anything like that.
And then another question, the process of the initial thought or idea moving into the consulting group that did the feasibility, the market study, how did that change? I mean, the initial vision of the group that wanted this to where it is today, and then how much was the membership involved in where you ended up today? You know, you had a small group of members, and then you have this huge membership now. And is it how far to deviate from the initial concept?
I think the big deviation is that I think that we don't have as diverse a product line as we thought in terms of conventional. We started off with probably an 80-20 mix, 80% natural organic, 20% conventional, and then we just tweaked the product line based on what people bought, and I'd say it's probably 90% organic conventional with a little bit of organic natural with a little bit of conventional thrown in for price. I think that's the biggest difference from what people really expected.
You let the sales kind of push that direction, basically?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, and now, I mean, we just don't have room to have stuff on the shelf that doesn't sell. We're really running out of room.
Okay.
Our parking, we don't have enough parking. I'm trying to figure out how to get 30 staff parked someplace off-site. So it's all.
You hear people talk about, I apologize for taking more time, but oh yeah, we want a butcher shop, you know, we want a flower shop, we want a little community center to teach people how to cook with different vegetables, organic vegetables, and you know, everybody has all these great ideas of what they'd like to have, but the reality is you have to run a business that has to be profitable, and
right.
So how do you get people to understand that maybe you got to look at what your core competency is going to be, and then maybe expand later on?
I think we communicated that all the way along. Like, let's just. There were some people that wanted to argue, like, we don't think you should have vitamins. That's just snake oil. It's like, you know, like, and it's just like, why don't we just open a store and then we can fight about what we have in it after we get it open? And then it hasn't really been an issue. We've got one of the key things for our store, I think, is we have a fantastic meat department. We really focus on the perishables, produce, meat, deli, and meat is another area with a lot of local products. So that was how we talked about that. We've done member surveys. We did member surveys early, followed them up, and they're pretty consistent. There's a pretty shared vision.
As opposed to getting a group of 50 to 100 people together and doing some kind of major brainstorming, the survey worked just as well.
It did.
Yeah.
It confirmed that what we communicated, which had made people join, was what they wanted.
How did you do your surveys? How were those surveys conducted?
The first one, I think CDS did for us in 2002, Peg Nolan. And then now we're a member of NCGA, and NCGA works with the University of Wisconsin on a survey service. And the format is pretty similar to what the first one was, so we can compare.
Is it
The first one we did was mailed hard copy, and now they're emailed. So we've done 2 since we opened and 1 before.
I just want to give a quick comment on transparency about site. I would say we're only on site for a second store right now, so and what I would say is be really transparent from the start that you will be talking to them about that. And the way I've been able to do that is talk to them like business owners. I'm like, you and I, we own this business and we love to be transparent, but we have to know up front that we're up against these corporations. And they will do dirty things to prevent us. And I was just like case studies and stuff, so I'm like, I was clear, like, there's gonna come a point in this whole process, we're gonna get feedback, parts of town, there's gonna come a point in this process where you guys are gonna trust a small group of us to basically be those brokers for you to get us through this phase, so, but we all have to protect the co-op by doing that. And we're just upfront about that, and I see startups not be upfront about that, and I think that's something that would really help to be upfront about, is that there's gonna be lots of input, and then you're gonna trust a group of us to act on your behalf to protect us from the corporations, and we'll get you in on it soon. And that prevents a lot of problems.
I always like to tell a story, true story. Some of you may know this. There was a food co-op that was going to build a new store, had a site picked out, wasn't secured, put it on the front page of their newsletter, and the CEO of Wild Oats, when Wild Oats was an independent chain store, walked in, picked it up, went over and got that site. And that happened for real. So that, you do want to avoid that.
And it could happen with other businesses, not just with like a Wild Oats.
Absolutely.
You know, so it's a competitive marketplace out there for real estate.
Yeah, yeah.
Just be transparent about where you can't be transparent from the start. Right.
Yes. This is how this is going to work. And yeah. We did a lot of communication. You guys with your new, you like have emails for everybody, right?
Yeah.
That is golden. Existing co-ops don't have as good access lots of times to email, because email kind of came along afterwards. So we did regular every 2 weeks email to our members, and then plus we did a printed newsletter every month or every other month, depending on how exciting things were. So it's good to keep that.
You use Facebook also?
We do now. We didn't then. Yeah, Facebook is great. Really cheap.
How do you measure success?
Measure success in sort of a triple bottom line. So financial success, success as being a good employer, and success in social ways, buying from local vendors, supporting local community, recycling our trash, solar electricity. I actually have, if anybody wants it, I've got our last annual report, which shows the triple bottom line, how we measure it. I'm happy to give you a copy of that if you're interested. Because this shows how we decided to measure success. So I got a stack of these. You can.
In your article in Cooperative Grocery, you mentioned that when you were putting funds together, 48 co-ops from across the country provided over $600,000 in support of this startup. How was that?
Oh God. Yeah, this is before we had the level of support that we have through other organizations now. So a big chunk of it, $400,000, was food co-ops putting deposits in the National Co-op Bank to secure our The National Co-op Bank did not want to fund our project. They said, we'll give you $400,000 if you get other food co-ops to put $400,000 in the bank that we can hold to secure your $400,000 loan. And that was like the final piece, the very last moment. And that was before NCGA had any kind of loan program or anything like that. And the NCGA meeting was going on, and I was a member, and I told them my story, and we got enough people to put in 10 and 15 and $5 and $10,000 things to cover that. So that was that part. Others were loans, extra equity, different points in time. The 150 came from when there's some money that the Regional Co-op Grocers Association had when Northeast Cooperatives closed. They had $150,000 and they said, what could we do with this money to support co-ops in this region? And somebody said we could give it to the food co-op in Northampton and they could start. So I just happened to be, now there's more resources. Now like you can get more resources from other groups. We figured out that food co-ops aren't going to be able to do that with all the food co-ops starting all the time.
So the National Co-op Bank gives loans?
Yeah. On and off.
Rochelle has a lot of skills. One of her greatest skills is as a storyteller. You know, I mean, you can see that here today in terms of just the presentation, but all throughout your project, I think you really told the story well. And I think this is one of the real contributors to your success. So it's something to keep in mind for all of you as to how you can tell your story to your various communities.
Yeah, people like a good story.
And it was exciting.
Oh my God.
It's a love story.
I really was. I was on the edge of my seat for so long. And then it would be like, and that fell through, you know, and it's like, I got more gray hair that time. It actually got a little bit better. And then we opened the store and then it got all gray again. Anyway, thank you. Thank you for all of your work. I'll try to figure out how to get